Yes. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests, and welcome to the 86th National Finals of the American Legion High School Oratorical Scholarship Program, a constitutional speech contest. We'd also like to welcome those who are joining us on the internet via Legion TV and also on Facebook. We're excited that all of you are here with us today. My name is Dave King, and I'll be serving as today's moderator. At this time, would everyone please rise and remain standing through the completion of our Pledge of Allegiance. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem. And salute. Two. And to lead us in our invocation this morning is Karen Street.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to this republic for which we stand, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our God is great, and good morning. We stand in reverence before him. Most gracious and mighty God, as we gather in fellowship, we give you thanks, O Lord, for the gift of speech, the pursuit of wisdom, and the principles that guide our nation. Bless our final contestants with clarity, courage, and confidence as they share their insights. May this competition honor the ideas of freedom, justice, and democracy. We thank you for fairness, respect, and inspiration in every spoken word. May all who listen be moved toward unity and understanding. In your holy and most precious name, we say and pray, amen and amen.
Please be seated. Well, this morning, 3 contestants, each having won their department, the national quarterfinal, the national semifinal contest rounds, will compete for $67,500 of scholarship money. In the over 80-year history of this activity, the American Legion has awarded more than $6 million. And you will notice that the contestants are not in the auditorium at this time. Throughout the competition portion, they will appear on stage only to deliver their orations. I have some instructions for you, the audience. You play a key role in maintaining fairness to all of our contestants. First, please do not applaud until the contest is completely finished, until they've all spoken. I would also ask you to refrain from taking any pictures or videos. Currently, if you have a cell phone or watch, or a new thing I learned this year, smart glasses, please turn them off, silence them, do what you need to do so that you don't interfere with a contestant. Again, I ask you not to take any pictures. You take a lot of pictures at the end of the contest. And also, we will have, though, we're on TV, so we will have staff photographers, another contract that will be walking around taking pictures of the speakers, so only those authorized will do that, and you can see these guys now. Please remain in your seat while a contestant is speaking. If you must leave the room, please do it between speakers, and returning before the next speaker begins, otherwise you will have to wait outside the door until that speaker has finished. If you happen to be seated next to a judge, please do not disturb him or call attention to him. Our speakers will be introduced today by number only. Prompting in any manner is not permitted. Doing so may result in the disqualification of that speaker. Each speaker is about to deliver an 8 to 10 minute prepared oration on some phase of the United States Constitution and civic responsibilities. The contestants are not allowed to use notes, they're not allowed to use a podium, nor a sound system. You may notice that the contestants have a wireless mic. That wireless mic only feeds to the TV. It does not amplify their voices in any way. The contestants will be shown a time card at the 8, 9, and 10-minute mark of their oration. If there is a violation of a time requirement, a penalty of 1 point for each minute or fraction thereof shall be assessed against the contestant's total score. There will be a short pause between contestants to allow the judges time to mark their scorecards. And before introducing the last speaker, I will ask the National Commander to come and draw an assigned topic from the 4 that are provided. All contestants will then speak 3 to 5 minutes on that particular subject. When the last contestant has spoken for 7 minutes on the prepared oration, contestant number 1 will be taken to a private room, given the topic card, and allowed 5 minutes to prepare for her presentation. I will read that assigned topic to you before contestant number 1 is introduced for the assigned topic. If everyone is ready, I will call for contestant number 1. The title of her speech is The Constitutional Gavel.
Imagine I'm holding a gavel in my hand. If American Legion oratorical rules allowed for props, I would hold it in my hand for you to actually see. This is no ordinary gavel, but a special one, handcrafted by my great-great-grandpa John in 1948. It was created from a piece of black walnut from the family farm. The occasion was when his wife, my great-great-grandma, was elected to serve as American Legion Auxiliary President. My own grandma received the gavel when she served as Auxiliary President in my hometown. While it currently has a prominent display in Grandma's china hutch, there's a note on the back promising that one day the gavel will belong to me. This gavel is a special family legacy of service. In a broader sense, I use it today as a metaphor for the Constitution, the document that exhibits the leadership that has guided our nation for 238 years. This heavy and historic constitutional gavel represents the document itself, whether wielded in the hand of the President of the United States, the Speaker of the House, or of the Speaker pro temp, or the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Our heavy and historic constitutional gavel represents the three branches of government and thus a very delicate and necessary balance of power. Did you know that the gavel is a uniquely American symbol? In every courtroom and at every official gathering, the gavel represents not just authority, but the very foundation of lawmaking and law enforcement through the courts. As American humorist Will Rogers once expressed why two Americans can't meet on the street without one banging a gavel and calling the other to order. Let's metaphorically gavel into four of the most important meetings in American history that have shaped our constitutional principles. The constitutional gavel first came down in an important meeting that served as a prequel to the Constitution itself, when on May 10, 1775, the Second Continental Congress discussed declaring independence after the Revolution had already begun. It would be a little over a year later that the Declaration of Independence would be signed, which is basically a list of grievances against King George. And of course, they gavelled out on July 4th, 1776, when the delegates unanimously agreed to separate from Great Britain. Following the bitter war, it was time to construct a new government, and the second of the great meetings started to draft the Constitution. 55 delegates met on behalf of 12 of the 13 states, Rhode Island the only state to not send a delegate. Originally, the convention had been called to revise the Articles of Confederation, which was seen as too weak to govern the new nation. Ratification was no simple task. There were the anti-federalists, who feared that a powerful national government would suppress state and individual rights. Larger states with more population wanted more representation, and smaller states thought there should be equality. After all, under the previous Articles of Confederation, each state had been allocated the same amount of delegates. In the long summer, in a stuffy room with delegates traveling in and out of the convention hall, the same 55 were never in the same place at the same time. Finally, and perhaps amazingly, a compromise was reached. The new Congress would have a House based on population and a Senate with 2 members from each state. On September 17, 1787, the meeting was adjourned. But that wasn't the end. No sooner when the Constitution was sent to the states for ratification did states fear that a powerful national government would suppress their rights. So back to the drawing board the men in the white wigs went to gavel back in session and draft the Bill of Rights. Have you ever considered the first 5 words of the Bill of Rights? Congress shall make no law. You see, the Bill of Rights was meant to protect the people against government overreach. The Constitution would not have been passed without the Bill of Rights, which is often why it's referred to as the price of ratification. These important rights guarantee freedom of religion, speech, and assembly, the right to bear arms, protection against double jeopardy, and due process. The Bill of Rights was meant to secure individual rights, as well as balance the power between the state and federal government, giving any powers not written in the Constitution to the states. Perhaps the most important of all constitutional debates was to establish the amendment process in the first place. Article 5 is the shortest, but the most important of all, because it allows for our governing document to change as our world advances. The constitutional framers set a high bar for the constitutional amendment process. Although more than 11,000 amendments have been proposed, only 17 have been passed from 1791 to 1992, when the 27th Amendment was added. In the past 33 years, no amendments have been added. Why so few? Remember that a constitutional amendment must be passed by 2/3 vote of Congress, and then ratified by 3/4 of the state legislators. A very high bar indeed. Back to the gavel. Have you ever been in a meeting where things got so out of hand that the presiding officer had to bang the gavel multiple times and shout, "Order, order"? In our metaphor, these were times when the constitutional gavel needed to be hit loudly and repeatedly to call our nation back to order. From the moment of our nation's adoption of the Constitution itself, slavery was the monumental crack in the foundation of our nation. This fissure was so deep and wide that it tore our nation apart in the immense constitutional crisis of the Civil War. The nation would only be put back together again through the reconstruction of our Union and the constitutional amendment process through the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, which respectively ended slavery, guaranteed due process for all, and secured the individual right to vote regardless of race or servitude. Well, for men, at least. Later yet, the constitutional gavel would lay the powerful hammer down once again and give women the same right to vote in 1920 through the 19th Amendment. It took decades of protest and agitation. More than one woman was gavelled down, called out of order, or even thrown into jail for seeking the right to vote. The universal right to vote was earned through change and progression. It is now our universal duty to vote, and not just in federal elections every 4 years. We must vote in every local election, like selecting our school board members, city and county officials. Tragically, there is a poor record of civic engagement amongst these local elections. According to the Center for American Progress, every year there are more than 82,000 school board members elected, making this group America's largest of all elected officials. Yet voter turnout is estimated to be only 5 to 10%. We can and must do better. I can't leave you today without expressing my gratitude to the American Legion for sponsoring this contest. In my own family, I'm the 4th generation to participate. Throughout my family's involvement in American Legion oratory, there has been immeasurable learning about the Constitution. Throughout my life, whenever I hold my family's black walnut gavel made in 1948, it will remind me of how our founding fathers sought to preserve a nation for generations and created a document that would withstand the test of time. Honoring our Constitution and its principles are exactly the influence of American Legion oratory. This is the prescription for every American citizen. Study the Constitution. Together, let's watch and see when and if the constitutional gavel will come down, whether yay or nay, on the next order of business for our nation.
The time for contestant number 1 is 9 minutes and 43 seconds. There is no time penalty. I will now call for contestant number 2. The title of her oration is Civic Virtue, Strengthening Our Constitutional Republic.
Many years ago, the sun beat down on an ordinary farmer plowing his field. Suddenly, a young boy ran up to the farmer and told him that enemy armies were quickly advancing. The boy had come bearing a message from the farmer's countrymen, who were asking him to come and lead the army. Immediately, the farmer left his plow standing in the field and set out to answer their call. Within 16 days, the farmer had led his troops to victory. After completing this great act of public service, the farmer chose to surrender power and return to his plow. He was content that the Roman Empire was at peace. If you had been that farmer, would you have done the same? To those living centuries after him, Lucius Cincinnatus was known as a role model of civic virtue. In fact, George Washington expressed his belief that Cincinnatus exemplified the good citizen, someone who chooses to serve the common good. And as head of our Constitutional Convention, Washington also knew that our Constitution requires modern-day Cincinnatuses. Our Constitution depends upon civic virtue. President and founding father John Adams once declared, quote, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other," end quote. Adams was not claiming that every citizen must subscribe to one state religion. Instead, Adams was claiming that the strength of our Constitution depends upon the civic virtue of the people. Adams knew what we seem to have forgotten, that only a virtuous people can self-govern effectively. Today, we will learn what civic virtue is and how our Constitution was built on civic virtue. We will then see the desperate state of civic virtue today and how changes must be made to preserve the precious liberties our Constitution protects for every American. The John Adams Academy explains that, quote, "Virtue is an inner commitment and voluntary outward obedience to principles of truth and moral law," end quote. A virtuous individual is disposed to make moral choices. Civic virtue is that same disposition when it comes to the common good. Civic virtue requires a citizen to put the needs of the community over their own, just as Cincinnatus did when he left his plow. When we strive for civic virtue, we also care about fulfilling our civic duties, such as voting, jury duty, and community involvement. The virtuous citizen is honest, law-abiding, and an active political participant. If at its basic level, civic virtue is prioritizing the common good, we should next be asking ourselves why our Constitution depends upon it. If our Constitution is the visible foundation of our country, civic virtue is its invisible substructure. Our Constitution was made for good citizens who care about their government and work to preserve it. But if a populace stops caring about being a good citizen, our constitutional system will fall apart. This was something our founding fathers had in mind when drafting the Constitution. As Professor David Brooks writes, quote, "America's founding fathers studied the history of democracies going back to ancient Greece. They drew the lesson that democracies can be quite fragile. When private virtue fails, the constitutional order crumbles," end quote. The founders realized that the ancient democracies shared a common trait. All of them had fallen. And the reason they fell was because of a dereliction of civic virtue in the people. This caused our founders to take a different approach, creating a new form of government distinct from the ancient democracies, but one that would succeed where they had failed. The end product was a document that completely depends upon civic virtue. John Adams wrote in a letter in 1776 that, quote, "The only foundation of a free constitution is pure virtue," And if this cannot be inspired into our people in a greater measure than they have it now, they may change their rulers and the forms of government. But they will not obtain a lasting liberty. They will only exchange tyrants and tyrannies, end quote. Without civic virtue, our constitutional government will fall just like the ancient democracies. Because of this, any limitation on the ability of a good citizen to act virtuously is an attack on our Constitution. George Washington was often referred to as the modern-day Cincinnatus, for he had also abandoned his plow to lead our new nation. Washington warned of the danger of attacks on civic virtue when he wrote in his farewell address, quote, "It is substantially true that virtue is a necessary spring of popular government. Who that is a sincere friend to it can look with indifference upon attempts to shake the foundation of the fabric," end quote. A lack of civic virtue shakes the foundation of our country. If we lose our virtuous citizenry, our Constitution will lose its substructure. We now understand civic virtue and that our Constitution was built upon it. But what is the condition of this substructure today? The unfortunate reality is that civic virtue is rarely talked about, much less fostered. This has resulted in a lack of trust in America. In 2019, the Pew Research Center asked Americans about their level of confidence that other citizens would fulfill their civic duties. The survey found that a majority of American adults do not expect others to cast an informed vote and do not trust that other Americans are capable of holding civil conversations with people of different views. As a result, our Constitution is at risk of losing its impact. The checks and balances built into our system of government will no longer function if the people do not care enough to enforce them. Our American experiment is in danger of failing for the same reason as the ancient democracies that came before it. However, each of us has the power to strengthen our Constitution and maintain its substructure by striving for civic virtue. So, what steps can we take to do so? First, we must teach our nation what civic virtue is. This will help to instill in the minds of young Americans what it means to be a good citizen. Second, we must individually strive for civic virtue. That way, we can teach it to our children, see it at play in our community, and reap the benefits of it as a nation. Both of these steps, teaching about civic virtue and striving for it ourselves, must take place at the most local level, in our families and communities. As Professor of Law David Brooks writes, quote, "Responsibility for inculcating civic virtue rests with families, schools, and other institutions of civic society," end quote. If we wish to rule ourselves, we have the responsibility to rule well. We can only do that by focusing less on our own desires and more on how we can serve the common good. We must be willing to lay down our own plow, just like Cincinnatus, and come to our country's aid. Because every citizen, no matter their race, gender, or religion, has the constitutional right to a trial by jury. Every citizen deserves to be led by a public servant who is elected by an informed populace. And every citizen should have the ability to engage in civil conversation with people who disagree with them. Each of us has the duty to stand up for these liberties by striving for civic virtue. Only then will our constitutional freedoms truly be protected. The first time I heard the story of Cincinnatus, I was sitting in my mom's lap in her rocking chair while she read to me from the Book of Virtues. I hope for the day when I can hold my own little girl and read her those same stories. At its simplest, this is what our Constitution was built upon. We must hunt history for stories of civic virtue and tell them to our children. But not only that, we must also model these civic virtues ourselves. Our lives should be a powerful example of care for and service to our community, thereby helping to preserve the precious constitutional rights of all Americans. The civic virtue of Cincinnatus inspired George Washington to lead our new nation. Just imagine what our civic virtue could do for America.
The time for contestant number 2 is 9 minutes and 40 seconds. There are no penalties. Before I introduce contestant number 3, we will draw and assign topic. National Commander of the American Legion, James Lacossiere Jr., would you stand and be recognized and welcome? And choose. Sign topic room. Would you please take that? Let the contestants begin. I will announce the topic following the ending of the prepared oration given by contestant number 3. Ladies and gentlemen, contestant number 3. The title of her oration is The Constitution in the Digital Age.
How many of you have ever clicked yes or accept without reading the terms and conditions on your phones? I know I have. Whether it's downloading a new app, signing up for a social media account, or using an AI tool, we all click that button without a second thought. It feels harmless, doesn't it? But what if pressing that button meant granting a stranger the right to track your every move, to listen in to your private conversations, or to even predict your deepest thoughts? The reality is, every time we click accept without considering the consequences, we might be considering rights that people have fought and died to protect. Every time we share something online, we are shaping the future of free speech. And every time we disregard privacy settings, we undermine the protections that previous generations have worked to preserve. Here's the truth. When we enter the digital world, we do not, and we must not, forfeit our constitutional rights. The Constitution allows us to post, share, and engage on social media. But today, its opaque algorithms, not public discourse, decides which voices are heard and which are silenced. Social media companies collect more data on us than any government agency ever could. We are not just users. We are data points constantly being tracked and analyzed and under constant surveillance. A 2022 report from the Annenberg Public Policy Center found that only 47% of American adults can name all three branches of American government. And among younger people, the statistics are even more alarming. A 2022 report from the National Assessment of Educational Progress found that only 22% of 8th graders were proficient in civics. This means that less than 1 in 4 teenagers fully understand the principles of American democracy. Now let's contrast this with social media. According to a Pew Research Center study, 95% of teens use YouTube, 67% use TikTok, and 62% use Instagram, spending an average of 7.5 hours a day on their screens. We are raising a generation of digital natives who are incredibly adept at navigating social platforms, yet most are disconnected from the very principles that guarantee those digital freedoms. As Thomas Jefferson warned, quote, "If a nation expects to be ignorant and free, then it expects what never was and never will be," end quote. And this ignorance has consequences. Take, for example, the tragic case of Molly Russell, a 14-year-old girl who died by suicide after being subjected to harmful, algorithm-driven content online. These algorithms that prioritize engagement over well-being led Molly down a dangerous path. If we truly believe in democracy, if we truly believe in the sanctity of individual freedom and informed choice, then we must ask ourselves, how free are we when unseen forces manipulate our privacy? A 2023 report from the Pew Research Center study found that 81% of teens feel that they have little to no control over the data that companies collect about them. Yet we keep clicking accept. Why? Because it's easy. Because we want the latest app or the chance to make the next viral video. In our quest for likes, we often fail to understand the long-term consequences. We stand at a critical juncture where the principles embedded in our U.S. Constitution collide with the boundless and sometimes uncontrollable world of social media and digital tools. But can laws written in parchment and ink 2 centuries ago still protect us in an age of algorithms and artificial intelligence? The answer is unequivocally yes. The Founding Fathers sat in a sweltering room in Philadelphia in 1787 to draft a document that would not only outlast their lifetimes, but define the future of a young nation. The founders may not have been able to foresee the internet, but they understood one universal truth. Threats to liberty remain constant, even as their forms evolve. Our U.S. Constitution is not an artifact of history. It is a living, breathing document that guides us through our current challenges. As Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg once said, quote, "The Constitution is a work in progress. It is up to each generation to create a more perfect union," end quote. And the brilliance of our Constitution lies in its adaptability. It is designed to evolve, to meet new challenges head on. In 1803, Marbury versus Madison established judicial review, allowing the Supreme Court to interpret the Constitution in the face of new issues, from civil rights to cyber rights. Today, I would like to talk about 3 amendments that provide the framework for addressing the issues of our privacy and our constitutional rights and freedoms online. First is the First Amendment, which protects our freedom of speech. It was originally meant to protect our speech in newspapers, pamphlets, and public debates. Today, it protects our speech in online platforms. In Packingham versus North Carolina, the Supreme Court ruled that social media platforms have become the modern public square, ensuring that our speech online is protected just as much as our speech in a newspaper or in a protest march. However, unlike traditional town squares, social media platforms are privately owned. This creates a conflict. While the government cannot censor our speech, big tech companies such as Facebook, Twitter or X, and YouTube can set their own rules. Our First Amendment doesn't just protect our mere right to speak. It protects our right to think, explore, and express without fear of surveillance. But when social media companies track our every click, when algorithms analyze every interaction, and our digital footprint is stored indefinitely. We lose not just our right to privacy, but our freedom to think boldly and to speak freely. Second is the Fourth Amendment, which protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. It was originally meant to protect the government from entering our homes or searching through our personal property without a warrant. Today, it protects digital data, text messages, emails, phones, and location tracking. In Riley versus California, the Supreme Court ruled that police need a search warrant in order to go through our smartphones. Why? Because our smartphones hold so much personal information about us, it is like a mini library of our lives, ensuring that our digital privacy is protected just as much as our physical privacy. Today, there are ongoing debates about our privacy with surveillance, facial recognition technology, and data collection from big tech companies. Consider the Cambridge Analytica scandal, where 87 million Facebook users' data was harvested and sold without their consent. And it gets worse. Today, apps both foreign and domestic collect data on us, not just about our dance moves, but about our locations, behaviors, preferences, and even our facial expressions. The data they collect on us allows them to know when we wake up, where we live and where we work, and even what we buy. Our Fourth Amendment was meant to protect us from government intrusion, but today, we need protection from corporate surveillance. We must ensure that surveillance is not the price that we have to pay for participation in digital life. Third is the 14th Amendment, perhaps the most profound promise our Constitution makes to us: equal protection under the law. But when we're on social media, algorithms decide what content we see, who we hear, and how we're heard. Think about that. Our constitutional right to equal protection now not just depends on human decisions, but on artificial intelligence. We must make sure that algorithms do not reinforce bias and create digital discrimination. In 1787, when Benjamin Franklin emerged from the Constitutional Convention, a woman asked him, "What have we got, a republic or a monarchy?" And Franklin's reply was, "A republic if you can keep it." Today, keeping it in the digital age means ensuring that our rights hold the same values that our Constitution held 2 centuries ago. So what do? We must understand our rights. We must demand transparency from companies that are collecting our data. And we must make sure that we, the people, remain stronger than we, the platform. Now let's return to that accept button. The next time before clicking accept, shouldn't we make sure that companies accept their responsibility to protect our privacy? So the next time before clicking that button, we must remain informed, vigilant, and proactive about safeguarding our rights, because our Constitution is only as strong as our willingness to understand, protect, and defend it.
The time for contestant number 3 is 9 minutes and 44 seconds. There are no time penalties. For the past 5 minutes, contestant number 1 has been in a private room preparing for the assigned topic presentation. The contestants will be shown a time card of 3, 4, and 5-minute mark of their assigned topic disclosure. If there is a violation of the time requirement, a penalty of 1 point for each minute or fraction thereof shall be assessed against the contestant's total score. The topic the contestants will address during the portion of this contest is Amendment 28, Section 1. After 1 year from the ratification of this article, the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors within, the importation thereof into, or the exportation thereof from the United States, and all territory subject to the jurisdiction thereof for of beverages purposes is hereby prohibited. Section 2, the Congress and the several states shall have concurrent power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Section 3, this article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislatures of several states as provided in the Constitution within 7 years from the date of the submission hereof to the states by the Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, contestant number 1.
Chief Justice Warren Burger once commented on the brevity of the Constitution. He said, "It only takes 23 minutes to read aloud. 12 if you read fast." It still seems remarkable to me, as it did to Chief Justice Burger, that a document so brief could be so flexible and durable. No other portion of the Constitution exemplifies this more than the 18th Amendment. Now, oddly enough, just as soon as Americans won our independence, we began to debate about alcohol. As a way to pay off a national debt owed to the French from the American Revolution, there was a tax that was sent out on whiskey. Colonists not only strongly objected this taxation, but they rioted in Pennsylvania, in which historians would later call the Whiskey Rebellion. Fast forward to the late 19th century, when groups such as the Anti-Saloon League politically opposed the consumption of alcohol. For religious reasons, many of the Protestant and Catholic churches sided with the Anti-Saloon League, which swung the nation into action. One memorable personality from the Anti-Saloon League was a preacher named Billy Sunday. And yes, that is his real name. Billy Sunday would go on to become one of the most influential American preachers at that time. He preached at a time when Americans were in a collective mood for idealism. He preached on women's rights to votes and labor unions, but most of all, he preached prohibition, and he preached all over the nation. He conducted more than 300 revivals with an estimated total attendance of 100 million Americans. At several of these revivals, he used a clever prop, a casket, and held a mock funeral for John Barleycorn, the fictional man who personified whiskey and beer. He preached, "The reign of tears is over. The slums will soon only be a memory. We will turn our prisons into factories and our jails into storehouses and corn cribs. The men will walk upright, the women will smile, and the children will laugh. Hell will forever be for rent." Of course, it wasn't just Billy Sunday preaching prohibition. By the year 1916, 23 states had laws against alcohol and saloons. State laws paved the way for the Prohibition Amendment to be crafted in the Congress chambers. When passed in 1919, it effectively illegalized the manufacturing, sale, and transportation of liquor across America. Part of me wishes that Billy Sunday would have been right and that John Barleycorn would have actually died in America, but of course that didn't happen. Things went from bad to worse. First off, prohibition significantly hurt the economy, and crime actually rose by 24% from the increased illegal manufacturing and smuggling, even the increased gang murders and prostitution rates. After some pushing by a bootlegger congressman named George Cassidy, a group known as the Wets of Congress saw that America was ready to repeal. And of course, the 18th Amendment would be overridden by the 21st Amendment in 1933. Your preferences about alcohol aside, but the 18th Amendment, the Prohibition Amendment, and the overturnment by the 21st Amendment duly note how our country has both politically and socially evolved over time. The 18th Amendment reminds us again of the flexibility and durability of this great document we call the Constitution. I'm happy to report that I myself met Chief Justice Berger's challenge and read the Constitution in just under 23 minutes. I challenge each and every one of you to do the same. It is our duty and responsibility as American citizens to study and understand the components of this great document we call the Constitution. Only 23 minutes to read aloud, but its impacts on all of us are immeasurable.
The time for contestant number 1 is 1 minute and 48 seconds. There are no penalties. I take that back. Four minutes, 48 seconds. The time is 4 minutes and 48 seconds. There are no time penalties. Ladies and gentlemen, contestant number 2.
The Great Gatsby, written by F. Scott Fitzgerald, illustrates the hypocrisy of American elites in the Roaring '20s. The novel describes its main character, Jay Gatsby, as a bootlegger who illegally distributes intoxicating liquors. The fictional Gatsby comes about his immense wealth almost overnight because of the ratification of the very real 18th Amendment. The 18th Amendment, Section 1 reads, "After 1 year from the ratification of this article, the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors within, the importation thereof into, or the exportation thereof from the United States, and all territory subject to the jurisdiction thereof, for beverage purposes, is hereby prohibited." Section 2 of the amendment gave Congress and the states power to enforce Section 1, while Section 3 set a 7-year deadline for ratification. With widespread support, it was ratified within 1 year and enforced by the Volstead Act. It is tempting to address why prohibition failed, but that has more to do with the 21st Amendment than the 18th. Instead, I will explain the events that caused the 18th Amendment to be passed and what we can learn from its presence in the Constitution. According to the Associated Press, quote, drinking was heaviest in the early 1800s, with estimates that in 1830, the average United States adult downed the equivalent of 7 gallons a year, end quote. In the 1800s, the saloon was as much the town center of politics and entertainment as it was a breeding ground for indecency and prostitution. Alcohol led to a decrease in willpower and an increase in rash decision-making, leading many men to abuse their wives while under the influence and squander their family's income on liquor. This prompted the emergence of the temperance movement, which advocated for self-restraint when it came to alcohol. Its leading organization was the Women's Christian Temperance Union. Established in 1874, this organization was also pivotal in the fight for women's right to vote. Members of the union used religion to inspire local change. They were known for kneeling and praying in front of saloons, and this alone caused several counties to go dry, banning the sale of alcohol. Soon, wealthy factory and business owners realized that they could not depend on intoxicated employees to be productive. As a result, many businessmen backed the Anti-Saloon League, a male-led organization. From 1900 to 1919, John D. Rockefeller contributed $350,000 to the league. That's around $13 million today. When America declared war on Japan in April of 1917, Americans began to see prohibition as patriotic. According to American historian W.J. Rorabaugh, quote, by late 1917, there were 23 dry states, 17 of which had gone dry by popular vote, end quote. But prohibition advocates were unsatisfied with this local shift and pushed for a permanent national ban. They received one when the 18th Amendment was ratified on January 16, 1919. Prohibition, on paper, had all the right intentions. The virtue of temperance is a worthy value, and drinking can be the source of many societal evils. But the 18th Amendment taught us what happens when the federal government contradicts its subsidiary role and tries to force individual virtue. As legislative attorney Brandon Murrell explained, quote, the 18th Amendment and Volstead Act were controversial because they empowered the federal government to police activities that implicated individual social habits and morality, a role traditionally led by state and local governments, end quote. If virtue is to be fostered, it must be done locally, not federally. The 18th Amendment, as The Great Gatsby illustrates, only encouraged the problems it aimed to eradicate.
The time for contestant number 2, 4 minutes and 26 seconds. There is no time penalty. Ladies and gentlemen, contestant number 3.
Before I talk about the 18th Amendment, it's important to understand its significance in our constitutional history. The 18th Amendment is the only amendment to ever be repealed by another amendment, the 21st Amendment. This is not something that we need to look at as a mark of shame, but instead, we should see this as a badge of honor, that our American democracy was able to recognize its mistake, admit it, and then have the courage and capability to correct it. The story of the 18th Amendment isn't just about alcohol. It is about the strength of our democracy. The 18th Amendment was born from good intentions, the temperance movement, led by religious leaders and reformers who believed that alcohol was the root of a lot of societal issues: broken families, poverty, and crime. They weren't wrong to be concerned. Alcohol abuse was rampant in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Salons were overflowing, public drunkenness was common, and domestic violence was a growing crisis on the rise. Prohibitionists dreamed of a cleaner, healthier America, one where families thrived and where crime disappeared. And so, in 1919, they ratified the 18th Amendment, banning the manufacture, sale, and transportation of alcohol. Then a year later, through the Volstead Act, in 1920, the law went into effect and the nation went legally dry. It was supposed to be an era of a better America, but the law meant to reduce crime only ended up increasing it. It was meant to create a sober society, but the 18th Amendment only caused new ways of rebellion. Speakeasies. Hidden underground bars multiplied across the country. Organized crime exploded. Mobsters such as Al Capone began large criminal empires. Law enforcement was overwhelmed, courts were backlogged, and prisons were overflowing with ordinary citizens simply caught with a drink in their hand. The 18th Amendment had only succeeded in creating a black market empire. Widespread corruption and lack of public support made this amendment nearly impossible to enforce. And by the 1930s, America had had enough. America had fallen deep into the Great Depression, and prohibition was becoming a financial burden. Americans began asking, why are we wasting so many resources trying to prohibit alcohol when there are millions of Americans outside starving? Their voices of dissent grew louder, and this time, America was listening. And in 1933, the 21st Amendment was ratified, repealing the 18th Amendment and repealing prohibition. And famously, upon its signing, President Franklin D. Roosevelt said, "What America needs now is a drink." Our Constitution, our sacred document of democracy, was changed and rewritten because the people wanted it. Prohibition was a failure, but we learned very valuable lessons from it. First, we learned that a law can only work when the people truly believe in it. We learned that a law can be born from good intentions, but still lead to disastrous outcomes, as the 18th Amendment did. It was meant to reduce crime, but it only ended up increasing it. We learned that freedom and responsibility must go hand in hand. But the most important lesson that we learned from our 18th Amendment and from prohibition was that democracy is not a finished painting. It is a constant work in progress. It evolves, and it listens. And when we make mistakes, as all nations do, we have the courage to admit them and to correct them. And that is not just what makes democracy truly strong, but truly free.
Time for contestant number 3 is 4 minutes and 32 seconds. There is no time penalty. This concludes the competition portion of the program. Will the judges please go directly to the tabulation room for the determination of the contest results. At this time, we will take a short recess. I would ask that everyone please be back in your seats in about 20 minutes. Thank you.
American Legion Baseball enjoys a reputation as one of the most successful and tradition-rich amateur athletic leagues. Today, the program registered teams in all 50 states plus Canada, and each year, young people ages 13 to 19 participate. When Legion program started in 1925 in Millbank, South Dakota, Major League Baseball has been very supportive of the national program. For decades, we were the only program that they took to the Major League World Series. They still do that to this day. Yogi Berra played American Legion Baseball in St. Louis, Missouri, on a team that reached the regionals in Hastings, Nebraska. Following high school, Berra joined the U.S. Navy in 1943 during World War II and served as gunner's mate on the USS Bayfield during the D-Day invasion of France. No man epitomizes the values of American Legion Baseball more than Bob Feller. Feller played American Legion Baseball through 1934 and reached the major leagues as a 17-year-old before even graduating high school. 2 days after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Feller enlisted in the U.S. Navy. With this selfless act, he became Major League Baseball's first player to enlist in World War II, and in the process gave up nearly 4 seasons of baseball in the prime of his career. In 1962, Bob Feller became the first American Legion baseball player inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame and famously said, quote, "I may have been the first Legion baseball graduate in the Hall of Fame, but I won't be the last." Babe Ruth was too old to join when Legion Baseball started, but he traveled the country, sharing the values of American Legion Baseball, from the American Legion All-Star Game in Philadelphia to the American Legion World Series in Los Angeles. Ted Williams once said, "All I want out of life is that when I walk down the street, folks will say, 'There goes the greatest hitter that ever lived.'" The 1960 American Legion Graduate of the Year accomplished that goal. The only Hall of Famer to serve during 2 wars, Williams sacrificed 5 years of his prime to serve the nation as a Navy and Marine fighter pilot. In 1928, 13-year-old Margaret Gisolo joined the Blandford Cubs, an American Legion team in Indiana. Nicknamed the Girl Babe Ruth, Gisolo's eligibility was questioned after her prowess angered a rival team. The Cubs, thanks in part to Gisolo's outstanding play, won the Indiana State Tournament and advanced to regionals. Gisolo joined the Navy Waves during World War II. If you take a young man who comes from, say, an impoverished background, give him a sense of belonging and a goal, you change their lives by doing that. How American Legion Baseball has lasted 100 years is what it offers to the young men that have participated in the program. The values I think that we instill in young men are a sense of community, teamwork, sportsmanship. And if you go back to the alumni who've come through the program and look at what they've contributed to the community and nation, those are the things we stand for. I think the American Legion program is different, not only because we're sponsored by a veterans organization, but we emphasize the individual skill, the team skills, like hit the cutoff man, bunt, hit and run, those type of things, whereas other programs focus more on the individual. How far can you throw it? How fast can you run? Those things are all important, but I think what the American Legion does is bring them together to form a team to reach a goal. I've always been of the impression that if you're good, the colleges and whatnot will find you. If you're good, the talent will rise to the top. If you go to the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown and you see the statues of Ted Williams, Babe Ruth, and look at all the enshrinees who were Legion players, and 100 years, that's a long time. But we've survived and we're still going strong. To hold this position as we go into the centennial, I feel honored, proud to do it. I'm an old guy, I've been around a while, but I'm just honored to be here and be part of recognizing an organization that's lasted this long and contributed to the fabric of our country by providing quality young people to go forth and lead the country. I'd like to see it continue and also like to see it grow. At some point down the road, when parents stop and look at what they get out of amateur sports, and they want to look at our program, and if it's lasted that long, it must be doing something right. I will keep the rules, keep faith with my teammates, keep my temper, keep myself fit, keep a stout-hearted defeat, keep my pride under in victory, keep a sound soul, a clean mind, and a healthy body.
Speaking for American Legion Junior Baseball as a whole, I can say without reservation that every boy in the United States who hopes to be a professional ball player should take advantage of this fine program.
I know I speak for all of baseball when I say that we are very grateful for the splendid job that the neighborhood coaches are doing for boys baseball. You know, fundamentally, there's no finer way for a young fellow to spend his time in the summer months than by competing in the Legion baseball program. It's a great thing for the major leagues, but it's a greater thing for the boys.
These boys get the best of coaching and equipment, and besides learning a lot of baseball, are becoming better American citizens. While playing American Legion baseball, I learned about the value of team play, sportsmanship, and met a lot of fine fellows in the process. Besides that, I learned a lot of baseball through the organized competition that the program affords. I think that every boy in America should play American Legion Junior Baseball if it is all possible for him to do so.
American Legion Junior Baseball is just about the finest sandlot baseball organization in the world.
Play ball. Yeah.
Corey Ragsdale, first base coach for the Texas Rangers. I played American Legion Baseball growing up in Jonesboro. I just want to wish a happy 100th birthday to American Legion Baseball. I know it was one of the best times of my life, and I hope it is for you too.
Dreamers, leaders, doers. Change your life in just 1 week. Ignite your passion for civic duty, government, and community. We have a place where your voice matters, where your ideas are heard, and where you and your friends have the chance to shape the future. That place is American Legion Boys State. Join us for a week that shapes a lifetime. Learn more about your state's program at legion.org/boysnation.
It's a proven fact that American Legion youth programs produce some of the best and brightest leaders that this nation's ever had.
The country is moving in the right direction with the youth in America.
It wasn't until 1925 that the American Legion gave birth to its first youth program. That was American Legion Baseball. And the emphasis was on citizenship and sportsmanship. It wasn't treated as just a sport. It was about citizenship. It was about getting people to come together to get along, to play America's pastime, but also to be prepared, if necessary, for future fights that this nation may have to endure.
I'd say it's a great program with a bunch of great coaching.
A more tight-knit group than any travel team I've been on. Camaraderie and staying behind each other to reach a common goal.
Travel ball, a lot of the times you go and you play and it's kind of just more of an individual game. But in Legion Baseball, it's more of a team working towards a goal, and I really appreciate that.
Just the people that were around this, our team bond is so tight, and the support from the community is amazing.
You're together as a team, you win as a team, you lose as a team. It's more of a family environment.
You get a lot closer with your teammates. You just create a bond like I love it.
That you're playing for something more than just yourself. You're playing for all the past veterans who have served. You're playing for the people who are still serving in the military. And it's a huge honor to be part of this program.
In 1938, the American Legion began the National Oratorical Competition. What the American Legion recognized is there was a desperate need for citizens to be familiar with the exact text of the Constitution of the United States, because that was the document that formed the foundation for how our republic functions. Well, the way to inspire that was to get people involved in competition.
What I see students get out of the oratorical contest is, number one, I think the kids gain understanding of our Constitution. That's something that's missing today in our education system.
I think this contest has really made it clear that we do have a voice, and our participation in our republic and our democracy is really important.
I have gained a deeper knowledge of the Constitution, our founding fathers, and of the veterans themselves.
It was an excellent experience to learn more about the first primary years of our government and what the founding fathers intended for our country. It's just really good to compare that vision with today's culture.
I've definitely taken away a lot of advocacy and what the Constitution means and how we can integrate it into our lives.
It's not just about the scholarship, it's not just about winning, it's not just about communication. It's also about learning ethics and integrity, greater appreciation for the American government, and I also think a greater appreciation for what the Founding Fathers did. I think the experience has helped me as a person, and it's also helped me as a communicator and as a citizen.
If you ever want your faith restored and your confidence restored in the future of this country, all you have to do is to observe one of those champions speak. It's absolutely fascinating. The American Legion Junior Shooting Sports National Championship is about far more than simply weapons safety and weapons handling. It is an exceptional sports discipline that is arguably one of the best indicators of human ability. It's an individual sport. It's a team spirit, but truly they all know within their heart of hearts that they're competing against themselves. Overcoming those obstacles, those mental and physical obstacles, everything is affected in order to get the desired result.
It's different than other sports, a lot different than other sports, but it's also a lot of discipline.
You gotta make sure that you're always there in the game at all times.
I definitely love the intensity and the challenge. Our new people you meet, just like really good friendships and bonds with other people.
Our coach is a veteran, and he really has made such a big impact on my life with an ROTC and rifle, and I really, really look up to him.
The American Legion, we pride ourselves on the fact that we can bring the kids in on our dime, have them shoot here competitively, and have a good time. That, to me, is just what we stand for.
If you're a spectator and you're observing this precision marksmanship, you may see the big digital display and think it's just a target. But what it actually is, from 10 meters away, is something not much bigger than a quarter. You're shooting basically into a period in 12-point font on top of a quarter. That's how precise they are. watching the youth of today be able to convey the words of the Constitution or to practice government in ways that set the standard, quite honestly, for the men and women that do it professionally.
We teach these students the democratic process and how the federal government should be working, how to write a bill, how to pass a bill, and just how to formulate the government and get the government up and running. The thing that amazes me the most is when you bring these students from around your state and who have never seen each other, in a couple of days, the way they just meld together and form a friendship. That's what I hope they take with them, to understand the American value and just what it means to have a republic such as the United States of America. We hope that we give every single one of the senators that come into this program a life-changing experience, because that's what we are all about as the American Legion. It's to foster and perpetuate 100% Americanism.
Boys Nation is truly a week that shapes a lifetime. The American Legion puts on a great effort to teach about the civic process at a state and local level, but it also creates a lot of good connections. You make a lot of good friends. It's an experience where you get to truly learn how the United States works, what the United States truly embodies, what the American Legion is, what patriotism is. It's an experience like no other.
If I had one wish, it would be that members of our government could stand in the back of the room and watch the deliberations or the election of the president at Boys Nation. Boys Nation produced a later President Bill Clinton. Our national oratorical contest delivered us Vice President Mike Pence. And there's so many countless other notable alumni in both political affiliations. Fortune 500 company CEOs, leaders in academia. Our programs work.
And that's one of the reasons why the American Legion has these programs, just so that we can promote these young people and show just what America is really all about.
Doug Weiss was my coach, and I'm still in touch with him, and his nephew, Reagan Karam, from growing up, are the two people that I think of the most when I think of Post 170, because one, Doug got me on the team, and two, Reagan played with me as a left-handed pitcher. You know, they were symbolic with that era of playing at that all-star level. And there was high competition. I wasn't the only catcher in the region that was worthy, and so I had to go earn my stripes. Felt like it mattered to play Legion ball, and to me, that was the first sign of pressure in a good way to be your best. I'm AJ Hinch, manager of the Detroit Tigers. Happy centennial birthday to Legion Baseball.
My fellow senators of Boys Nation.
Salutations, gentlemen. Well, howdy. I come to you today asking for your support for the highest position in the land, President.
Because, gentlemen, I dream an American dream.
Take someone who's compassionate.
It is time that we take back the power.
Who's determined.
I'm a man of the people.
I tried to milk a cow the other day.
Needs a leader that will unite our party.
But no milk came out.
I believe we can make Boys Nation that city on the top of the hill.
It was a milk dud.
Together, we can write a new chapter in Boys Nation history.
You have my word to be a president, not a politician. Primus inter pares, first among equals.
We will come through and we will win if you vote me as your president.
Boys Nation itself is a program that educates our high school juniors in the federal government system.
Here to Washington, D.C., we teach the democratic process.
Patriotism, service.
Presenting principled arguments, and then actually running for office and running for public vote.
How to write a bill, how to pass a bill.
This program opens eyes and introduces greater awareness of what it means to be an American, what our national symbols and icons really mean going back to the founding of the country.
You see these young men standing up, saluting the flag, singing patriotic songs, talking about service to their country. It just reminds you that we're in good hands, that we're going to be okay. Being put together with all these brilliant young men from all across the country who have different viewpoints and different backgrounds, but coming together and seeing what unites them and leaving here with that belief that, again, our country's strong. We can come together even though we have all these differences. But it's just the heart, and everyone's here not for themselves, but to help these young men become better Americans.
They have a fantastic time. They make friends that are going to last a lifetime. They get leadership lessons that they'll never forget. They get a lot of opportunities to help their resume when they're applying to jobs and colleges. and they become part of a brotherhood that spans the entire country. This program changes lives.
Things that, because of the American Legion, they get that unique experience.
Shooting has taught me a lot of discipline, taking my time to do things, thinking through things, and it relates to everything that I do in real life too. Like, why am I making this decision? What are like the right processes to come to the right decision? My name is Emmy Walrath, and I am from Kenosha, Wisconsin. I just kind of went into the match telling myself that I just want to have fun, and whatever happens, happens.
I would say it's not so much they learn the sport, it's what they learn here. Concentration, respect. That will carry on through the rest of their life. We are considered the premier program by a lot of the different organizations because of the way we not only treat the kids, but the way we make sure that every kid has the same chance, no matter what.
It's a very good experience, just like really good friendships and bonds with other people. Everybody's really friendly. You're not like isolated with just your team. My full name is Alexandra Orr. I'm from Bocosin, Virginia, and I shoot for the Lafayette Gun Club. I knew I just had to keep my heart rate down. So between every shot, I was just like taking deep breaths, just trying to calm down so I wouldn't be super shaky while I was shooting. I have been just working as hard as possible. For the last few weeks, I just came back from the CMP Nationals as well, and I did struggle quite a bit over there, especially in finals, and I lost my first place position there. So coming out here and being able to like do as well as what I would hope here and be able to maintain that was really rewarding.
And in first place, Alexandra Orr.
It was very exciting. I started crying a little bit when I found out, but it was definitely a lot of work. It was very like stressful for the finals, like not knowing one shot and you could have been down too many points to catch up.
I just wanted to take the best shot that I could at that last shot. I just wanted to leave with the best shot possible and like end everything with the best shot that I knew that I could take.
And our first place winner is Emmy Walrath.
Being the champion for this match, I feel very good about it. It's a good end to my final high school matches, and it just makes me feel very relieved and very like at peace with myself and ready for college.
It's good to look back and see that these kids have accomplished something that you started or that you helped. It's fun to watch them see what they can become and what they have become. You don't know where they come from. You don't know how they're raised. And if we can give them that little bit, change their life, we got it.
Discover the power of your voice and form a deeper understanding of our nation and the principles that shape it. As a participant in the American Legion Oratorical Contest, you'll develop a deeper knowledge of the U.S. Constitution and a greater understanding of the duties, responsibilities, rights, and privileges of American citizenship. As you step up to this academic speaking challenge, you'll learn leadership skills, the art of oration, and have a shot at winning up to $25,000 in scholarships. Seize your moment. Visit legion.org/oratorical and take the first steps towards shaping your future today.
Big thing in town was playing American Legion baseball, and that was always a goal of mine. You win as a team, you lose as a team. It's more of a family environment. You get a lot closer with your teammates, you just create a bond. A lot of the times it's just like you go and you play, and it's kind of just more of an individual game. But in Legion baseball, it's more of a team working towards a goal, and I really appreciate that.
Definitely a more tight-knit group than any travel team I've been on. We definitely get a lot closer.
Honestly, like the support you get, the
from the Legion is just amazing. The atmosphere here is insane. That was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. You know, it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
We all have good sportsmanship with each other, and good relationships, and we hold each other accountable.
Learning about the American flag, learning what it really means, you never really get told about it until you come here. It's more than just baseball, and there's a deeper side to it.
It's been amazing for a bunch of different reasons. The town's really rallied around the tournament. Legion baseball means something. Like, we're trying to instill values in the kids, and it's not about collecting a paycheck from a kid and telling him you'll get him in front of scouts. It's about playing for a bigger purpose.
American Legion baseball, it stands out above the rest. It has a meaning and a purpose.
They're playing for each other. When you come here and you hear the national anthem being sung, Jets Fly By, pierces your heart, you realize how big this game can be and how just you're kind of just a part of it. And it becomes something more.
You can look back and say two things. You had fun, and you want to do it again if you could, and you got better. Not only as a baseball player, as a person. It creates a brotherhood, but at the end of the day, that relationship and brotherhood that you can, create through American Legion in general is super important.
Showing respect and being classy all the way around. Growing up in the American Legion organization helped solidify the importance of, respect, doing things the right way.
These boys are relentless, and like I just told them, I want them in my foxhole anytime we go to war.
Still good morning. Good morning again. Before I make formal introductions of our contestants and the judges, I'd first like to recognize some distinguished guests. This morning we are pleased to have with us the National Commander of the American Legion, Mr. James Lacossiere. We also have the chairman of the American Legion's Americanism Commission, which has the policy-making responsibility for this contest, Mr. Mark Avis. I would also like to say hello to the national commander of the Sons of the American Legion, Mr. Joseph Navarrete. Also from the Sons of the American Legion, we have the Americanism Chairman for the Sons of the American Legion, Mr. Jeffrey Hicks. Jeffrey, thank you for being here. And we have the National Vice Commander of the Sons of the American Legion for the Central Region, Mr. Butch Ray. Also, we have the Director of the Americanism Children and Youth at the national level, Mr. Ron Neff. Thank you for your leadership. And I would like to publicly thank all the individuals who have assisted with the final contest today. It takes a lot of people to do that. The timekeepers, the assigned topic preparation room monitors, ushers, escorts. Would you all please stand up so that we can recognize you guys for the volunteer work you do? Hoorah. Okay. At this time, I would like to introduce our outstanding panel of judges. As your name is called, please come forward to be recognized. First, Miss Victoria Hughes. She has served as the co-chair of America 250, Civics, History, and America's Future Advisory Council for 5 years, helping to plan the nation's semi-quincentennial celebration. She brings over 40 years of education and nonprofit experience combined with a deep commitment to our American founding principles. Beginning as a classroom teacher, she has served as founding president of the Bill of Rights Institute and as a senior director of the Ashbrook Center at Ashland University. In those roles, she helped thousands of teachers and students strengthen their understanding of America's constitutional self-government. Victoria has also held positions at the Charles Koch Foundation, the Heritage Foundation, and the Reason Foundation. She is married to Ambassador Philip Hughes and resides in Millwood, Virginia. Be seated. Next is Carisha Hendrickson. She is the Vice President and Chief of Staff for the Jack Miller Center, a national organization committed to advancing education in America's founding principles and history. The organization builds and empowers a robust talent, a pipeline of scholars to drive innovation at all levels, from undergraduate education to university-based programs for K through 12 civics and history teachers. Carisha joined the organization in 2014 as manager of donor programs and has grown to the director of Center's communication and outreach strategies. Today, her central responsibility is ensuring the Center's strategic vision is moving forward whether it's project development or staff assistance wherever needed. Prior to joining the Jack Miller Center, she spent 15 years in the medical field. Clarice Smith. She is the Portfolio Director of America's Founding Principles Fellow at the Philanthropy Roundtable and has been with the organization since May of 2021. Prior to joining the Roundtable, Clarice served as the Program Manager at the John William Pope Foundation, where she was responsible for managing its public policy and higher education giving portfolios. In Clarice's current role, she helps build relationships with thought leaders and funders, working to protect and promote the American values that strengthen our free society. Clarice graduated from Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, and has a Bachelor of Arts in International Studies. Mr. Robert Warren. Robert is the Military Affinity Lead Account Manager at USAA. He has more than 30 years of experience in organizational leadership, collaboration, and strong relationship building with clients and internal partners. Robert is a Direct Marketing Association certified marketing professional and has worked successfully in multi-level organizations with diverse cultural groups both in the U.S. and abroad. He served over 13 years in the United States Army Military Intelligence Corps. He is a combat veteran of Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm and has been recognized numerous times for his service and honor. He's graduated from the United States Army's Defense Language Institute. He's attended Miami-Dade College and Central Texas College. Next is Jeff Stouffer. Jeff is the Director of American Legion Media and Communications Division. He has been National Director of this since 2007, previously serving as the Managing Editor of the American Legion magazine. He's responsible for a broad portfolio of print, digital, social, and physical media, and has worked at the American Legion National Headquarters for 25 years. He is also a speechwriter, a former weekly newspaper owner, and a publisher in Montana. He holds a master's degree in magazine journalism from the University of Oregon and a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Idaho. He is a member of the Sons of the American Legion, Squadron 42, Townsend, Montana. And now I would like to introduce to you to our three contestants. Appearing as contestant number 1 is Elena Andrews. Please stand up. And she is from Beersford, South Dakota. She is a senior at Beersford High School and is sponsored by American Legion Post 72 in Beersford. Appearing as contestant number 2 is Mary Crosby. And she, good. Yeah. She is from Burlington, Washington. She is a junior and is homeschooled, and she is sponsored by Post 91 in Burlington. Thank you. Appearing as contestant number 3 is Gina Harjani. from Gatlinburg, Tennessee. She is a senior at Gatlinburg Pittman High School, and she is sponsored by Gatlinburg American Legion Post 202. And now, the moment you all have been waiting for. The winner of a $20,000 scholarship is Elena Andrews of South Dakota.
Careful, this is heavy, young lady. Congratulations.
The winner of a $22,500 scholarship is Mary Crosby of Washington. And the champion of the 86th American Legion National High School Oratorical Contest is Gina Harjani of Tennessee. She's the winner of a $25,000 scholarship and an all-expense-paid trip to the National Convention of the American Legion in Tampa, Florida this summer, and as a member of the American Legion Youth Champions delegation. Please join me in another round for all three of these contestants. They did great. Yeah. We will be honoring all 50 national contestants this afternoon at 1 p.m. at the awards luncheon to be held in the Searle Center. We ask everyone to please honor the seating assignments in the banquet room. Contestants will be seated toward the front of the room as guests of honor so they may receive their recognition. All other ticket holders are welcome to be seated at any table with a table tent reading general seating. You must have a ticket to attend. I would also ask that at the conclusion of this contest, in a few minutes, that all 50 contestants remain here in the auditorium so that we may take pictures. And please rise for the benediction.
Look at these beautiful smiles. To God we go in grace. Bless those who have labored to make this event possible. Our young men and women contestants, their families, their posts, their departments, their mentors, and all the volunteers who support our young leaders. May their efforts bear fruit in shaping a future grounded in honor and in service. Lord, O Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth. Amen.
Would you all please join me in a salute to our colors? Hand salute. 2. This concludes the 86th American Legion High School Oratorical Scholarship Program, a Constitutional Speech Contest, National Finals. Thank you for attending.
you for the opportunity.
Good.